It's been a really long time coming. We started back in 2017 and we were researching feral children, and somehow we found Kaspar Hauser, and I'm really glad we did.
Put him in the straw, put the drunkard in the straw with the animals, with the beasts and animals. Put him in the straw, put the drunkard in the straw with the animals.
We're here now, working on the playtext, working with a great bunch of actors, and bringing his story to life. The project has been through so many variations. So many groups of people have come together to make this happen. All the text, all of the music, all of the sound, all of the movement, the dance, the people. It's culminated in this document. We arrived on a witch mountain. We had a writer's room at the beginning of this project that lasted 15, 20 days, taking all of the research, all of the bits and pieces, all of the transcriptions, the devised work, hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents, dozens of articles, research, you name it, and we've got this 60-page epic now in our hands, and it's just been great. It's just been great to get into a room, and I think everyone's been itching to get these characters in that space, in that little square that the performance takes place in. So now this is the first layer. It's all about meeting the text, meeting the characters again, going deeper, looking back at the research, keep feeding it back, and driving towards, what we hope is going to be a real ride for the audience.
Instead of individual scenes, we're now trying to move through the sequences of scenes, trying to move, I suppose, working out how to perform this piece after living with it for so long, improvising it. Now, we're really with the structure of it.
And working with the practicality, so troubleshooting set and costumes and props and trying not to fall over in heels and all those things.
There's a sort of level of technicality to any show where the sooner you get the props and you get the set, the more you can start to understand how you can use it and what it can offer you as well. It populates the imagination. You can endow the objects with certain importance and it becomes your world.
And that's where we are. We're trying to live these characters and almost, for me, set them loose. Not hold on to them too tightly any longer.
It feels a lot more real. We can be a lot more spontaneous and with each other and find different things.
From when I first read the script and then did a lot of R&D stuff before the rehearsals started coming along, I've started to understand my character and the other characters, and I've realised that my character has this father figureness, which I didn't know until the rehearsals became getting closer towards more of the show. And I've noticed that we've built a friendship, even as characters but also as persons. We made friends because obviously I've never worked with the Animikii cast, and I feel like I've got to know them a lot more since doing the rehearsals, learning about the characters, doing Zoom work by reading scripts and then bringing it into real life. And I've built a friendship with them, and they've made me feel like I'm now part of the team.
You think you know something, you write a text, and there's two logics at play. There's the devised logic and then there's the writing logic. We started with the devised logic, we moved on to writing, and then you think once you've got the play text, that's it. But it's just more keeps coming out. Maybe we should take this scene and put it in here and play it off there. Everything about this story just keeps surprising us. We're getting closer and closer and closer every day.
So usually when I'm designing, quite often even for new writing, even if we know that things will change in the rehearsal room or things are changing during the design process, generally the design is fairly locked in by the time we start rehearsals. But with this, just because I think this is the second draft that I've read the script that they've started with in the rehearsals, but we knew that so much was going to be very physical and come from the actors and Adam during the process, that I wanted to just kind of give Adam options of things to use. And for example, like, you know, these ladders or these chalkboards, or how about if I give you this and we'll see if it's necessary. So we knew that it was going to be in thrust. There is a historical kind of grounding in, for example, in the costumes and some of the props and the settings, but I wanted it to be more functional than that, and not necessarily everything has to be tied into being completely period appropriate. There's a white dress, which we discover was Maya's mother's white dress. So being able to use the different styles of clothing, different waistlines, different shapes, helps give the feel of a timeline and helps kind of tell that arc of story. I knew that Adam and Vicky, who is a sensory theatre expert, they always wanted to build it in rather than it being kind of tacked on at the end. So we've been having discussions about, you know, what sounds different costumes will make, the kind of materials, the weight of shoes, the kind of material of the soles will give different sounds for different characters. And we've also been talking about the different scents that we can put into the space. You know, we're going to have some straw at one point, which has a very distinctive smell. I'm really interested in like what fabrics the costumes are made of, you know, the kind of wools and silks, cottons and linens. You know, we want like really tactile, because that gives like a visual texture, but also gives a kind of an audio texture. When people do touch tours, you get a whole range there as well.
So it's been nice just to kind of observe Adam actually in terms of him as a director and how he creates just a really nice space, and it feels safe and it's kind of conducive to experimenting and playing, and as a process it feels really generous, and it feels like the performers are really kind of kind and generous to each other, and there's that ability to take risks and then kind of go, okay, that worked. And what I really love is this idea of always pausing afterwards and checking in with everyone and discussing, you know, the imagery that comes through the text. There's a real nurturing kind of feeling in that room. You want that kind of the opportunity to grow.
It's always a really interesting moment when the audience come in. We're working pretty much within a box already, and the space is very clearly defined and marked out. But I think the audience will help us to feel that sense of claustrophobia, a sense of pulling in the world.
This is a piece that ultimately is about how we as individuals relate to the stories we have about ourselves, the narratives we have of our own lives, and the choices that are in that. I can play to the story that I have, or I can play against it. And for me, the last couple of weeks is about finding those moments of switch. I'm playing against, and it's getting written into my character more and more, playing against the story that's there, and then choosing to play into it. And what's the fallout of those decisions?
I mean, it's called the Kaspar Hauser experiment. The live experiment is when the audience are with us, and then we can test things. We've been testing things in our own process, you know, in all of the many different ways in which we have in the R&D, bringing in our own experiments, asking questions, trying something out. The kind of chemical reaction of the story, the actors and the audience is going to be what makes it live. It's not a recital of a piece, it's a testing of the story, it's a testing of the piece.
So often with kind of stories based on, you know, a real historical character, you know, we know the answers now, like, you know, we know what actually happened, you know, even if they didn't at that point. You know, with the hindsight of history, we can, yeah, there are kind of solid, concrete answers. Whereas here, yeah, and at his time, no one still knows who Kaspar Hauser was, whether he was like, you know, whether his story is true, whether he was a con man, whether he, you know, was a compulsive liar. Like, there's still no definitive answers, and even around his death, like, don't know if it was murder or suicide, and it's quite unusual to have so much uncertainty over like all of the time periods, both like contemporary and modern.
I can't wait for everyone to see it. It's so rich. I actually feel honoured to be on the outside of it, watching it happen. The cast is so talented. They're so talented. You know, they can sing, they can move, they can dance, they can study character like nobody else. Ripples and ripples of excitement are travelling through this piece, and it needs an audience because they're the final part of the puzzle. When Kaspar steps up and asks for help, you know, the audience are going to bring it together. So I can't wait for people to see it.
He arrived on a Whit Monday.